Dear friend, today is Friday, December 26th, and I welcome you into this moment with gentleness and care. I'm grateful that you're here, because arriving here means you've made it through another full week, through responsibilities that ask much of you, through conversations that lingered in your mind, through moments of strength, and moments where you simply had to keep going. As we pause together, we acknowledge something deeply human. Our minds collect things, thoughts, emotions, worries, memories. Some arrive loudly, others quietly. Some are invited, others slip in when we are tired, overwhelmed, or unsure of what the days ahead will bring. Restless thoughts that circle without rest, inner voices that grow heavy, a subtle weight that doesn't always have words, but still presses on the heart. Even the strongest hearts feel this. Even faithful souls grow weary when too much is carried inside. And yet, you were never meant to carry it alone. Right now, there is a God who is near, a God who listens without interruption, a God who does not rush you, correct you, or demand strength from you. Through Jesus Christ, our Savior and Mediator, God draws close, gently entering the places others cannot see, bringing light where thoughts feel dark, calm where the mind feels unsettled, rest where the soul feels tired. This prayer is not simply something you listen to. It is an invitation to slow down, to breathe deeply, to allow your spirit to reset, to release what no longer belongs in your mind or heart. As we stand in these closing days of the year, let this moment become a quiet turning point, a sacred pause that leads into renewal. So settle where you are, take a slow breath, let your shoulders relax, and together, let us speak with the one who restores all things in Jesus' name. If this prayer brings peace to your heart, I gently invite you to subscribe, share it with someone who needs rest, and leave your prayer request in the comments. Return again tomorrow, and let this become a daily rhythm of peace, clarity, and renewal. God, I come to you quietly today, without rushing, without trying to sound strong, and without pretending that this week has been light. I arrive just as I am, carrying the weight of days that required more than I expected, moments that pulled at my focus, and thoughts that refused to stay quiet. I acknowledge this moment as a pause, a gentle stop after movement, a breath after effort. Lord, I recognize that the one praying right now has made it through a full week. There were responsibilities to carry, conversations to manage, decisions to make, and pressures that may not have been visible to anyone else. Some of those pressures settled in the mind, some lingered in the body, some became emotional noise that followed from morning into night. And here, in this moment, none of that needs to be explained or justified. I name before you, gently and without judgment, that restless thoughts and heavy mental energy are part of the human experience. They do not mean failure. They do not mean weakness. They are simply signs that something has been carried for too long. I acknowledge that negative energy does not always come from dramatic moments. Sometimes it accumulates quietly, thought by thought, concern by concern, until the soul feels tired without knowing why. So I slow this moment down. I invite stillness not as an effort, but as permission. I invite the listener, and myself, to pause the internal commentary, to release the need to analyze or solve anything right now. There is no task to complete in this moment. There is no performance required. There is only presence. God, I invite a gentle breath in, and then a slow breath out. Not forced, not controlled, just natural. I invite the body to rest where it is, seated, lying down, or simply still, without the need to adjust or correct anything. I acknowledge that rest does not always mean sleep. Sometimes it means allowing the mind to stop running ahead. In this space, I validate the exhaustion that may be present: emotional tiredness, mental fatigue, a sense of carrying too much internally while appearing fine on the outside. None of this is pushed away. None of this is corrected yet. It is simply seen. I ask for awareness, not action. I ask for calm, not answers. I ask for the safety of being held in this moment, without expectation. Let this be a place where the soul is allowed to arrive fully, without being rushed into change. I remain here for a moment, grounded, breathing, present, allowing quiet to settle gently, preparing the heart for what comes next, without forcing anything to happen yet. God, as we remain in this quiet space, I acknowledge that this moment is not about performance. It is not about saying the right words or presenting a polished heart. This is an invitation. Nothing more, nothing less. An open doorway into your presence, where effort is not required and pressure has no place. I remind the one praying right now, and I remind myself, that you are not evaluating us. You are not measuring our faith by how calm we sound, or how clearly we can express what we feel. There is no expectation to be eloquent here. No need to organize thoughts before speaking. You welcome honesty, even when it comes out slowly, imperfectly, or without full understanding. Lord, give permission in this moment to release control, to stop holding everything together, to loosen the grip on thoughts that feel heavy simply because they have been carried for too long. Let this be a safe place where nothing needs to be proven and nothing needs to be hidden. As we stand near the close of the year, I acknowledge this time not with pressure, but with gentleness. The end of the year does not demand reflection or resolution right now. Instead, it offers a quiet threshold, a soft turning point where what has been carried can begin to loosen its hold. Not everything needs to be sorted today. Not everything needs to be resolved. Sometimes renewal begins simply by allowing ourselves to pause. God, I invite the listener to rest in the understanding that this prayer is not a one-time moment. It is part of a rhythm, a gentle returning. There is no obligation to be perfect or consistent, only an open invitation to come back tomorrow and the day after, whenever the heart feels ready. This is not a requirement. It is a refuge. In this space, I release the need to rush forward. I release the pressure to move quickly into solutions or answers. I allow this prayer to unfold slowly, trusting that you meet us in stillness just as surely as you meet us in motion. And before we go any deeper, I gently extend an invitation. If this prayer feels like a place of peace for you, you are welcome to subscribe and make this a daily moment of rest. You may share it with someone who needs permission to slow down. And if there is something heavy on your heart, you are invited to leave a prayer request, not as a public display, but as an act of trust. God, thank you for creating spaces like this, spaces where pressure is removed, where striving gives way to surrender, where simply showing up is enough. I remain here, open and willing, ready to continue, not out of obligation, but out of trust and quiet expectancy. God, this is where I begin to speak honestly with you, not with prepared words, not with a calm that has been practiced, but with what is actually present inside. I come knowing that you are here already, not distant, not waiting to be invited, but near, attentive, and aware of everything I carry into this moment. I acknowledge before you that my thoughts are not organized. There is mental noise that hasn't settled, ideas overlapping, worries interrupting one another, questions without clear answers. I don't try to quiet them first. I don't try to sort them out before speaking. I bring them as they are, trusting that you are not disturbed by disorder. God, I also bring emotional weight, feelings layered on top of feelings, moments that haven't been processed, reactions I didn't have time to feel when they happened. There is a sense of overload, not because I am failing, but because I am human. And I trust that you meet me here, not asking me to be composed, not asking me to explain myself clearly, but simply to be present. I remind myself in your presence that you do not wait for emotional order. You do not require clarity before you draw close. You are not standing at a distance until everything inside me is calm. You step into the mess without hesitation. You listen even when words come slowly or imperfectly. You stay even when I don't know how to describe what I feel. So I let go of the pressure to fix anything right now. I don't need to resolve the week in this moment. I don't need to understand every emotion before naming it. I don't need to defend my tiredness or justify my weariness. I simply arrive. God. I bring the tiredness that settles deeper than sleep can fix, the weariness that comes from carrying responsibility, expectation, and inner tension. I bring the moments where I felt stretched thin, and the moments where I felt empty without knowing why. I trust that none of this surprises you. I rest in the truth that you meet people as they are, not as they wish they were, not as they plan to be tomorrow, but as they stand right now. I allow this prayer to be an honest beginning, not a polished one. If any words of scripture come to mind in this space, let them draw me closer, not correct me. Let them feel like an embrace, not a standard. Let them remind me that I am seen, known, and welcomed. I remain here with you, God, not rushing forward, not holding back, simply present, exposed without shame, trusting that this honest beginning is enough. God, in this quiet space with you, I allow truth to surface gently, not truth meant to accuse or correct, but truth that simply wants to be seen. I come without shame, without fear of being misunderstood, and I speak honestly about the ways I have been surviving rather than resting. I confess that there have been moments when I pretended to be okay even when I wasn't. I smiled when my heart felt heavy. I answered questions with quick reassurances while something inside me was asking for care, not because I wanted to deceive, but because it felt easier than explaining what I didn't fully understand myself. I acknowledge before you that I have hidden exhaustion. I kept moving when my body and mind were asking me to slow down. I told myself I would rest later. I pushed through tiredness because stopping felt inconvenient, or because I didn't know how to pause without feeling guilty. I see now that this was not strength. It was survival. God. I also confess that I buried pain in busyness. I filled my schedule, my thoughts, and my attention, so that uncomfortable emotions wouldn't have space to rise. I stayed productive, so I wouldn't have to be still. I stayed occupied, so I wouldn't have to listen too closely to what my heart was trying to say. And I admit, gently and without condemnation, that I numbed myself at times, through distractions that kept me from feeling too deeply, through noise that kept silence away, through habits that dulled awareness rather than healed it. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I didn't know how else to cope in the moment. God, I don't bring these confessions to be corrected. I bring them to be understood. I am not asking you to fix me right now. I am asking you to meet me in this honesty, to let these truths surface safely, without punishment, without pressure, without urgency. In this moment, I choose to stop striving. I stop trying to manage how I appear. I stop pushing myself to be stronger than I am. I stop holding everything together by sheer effort. I allow myself to be still enough to notice what has been carried quietly for too long. I trust that you are gentle with truth, that when I bring what is hidden into your presence, it does not overwhelm you, it does not disappoint you, it does not change your nearness. Instead, it creates space for care, for understanding, for rest. So I remain here, God, letting honesty breathe, letting coping patterns loosen their grip, letting truth rise without fear, not rushing toward change, but allowing this moment of exposure to be safe, held, and enough. God, in this still and open space, I invite you to begin a gentle work within me, not hurried, not forceful, simply steady and kind. I ask you to wash what has been carried too long, to cleanse what has become clouded, and to reset what feels worn down inside. I bring my thoughts before you, the ones that have been circling without rest, the ones shaped by worry, the ones weighed down by repetition. I don't push them away. I don't fight them. I simply place them in your care and ask that you wash through them slowly, removing what no longer serves peace, clarity, or truth. God, I invite you to cleanse my emotions as well. The feelings that have layered quietly over time, the heaviness that settled without announcement, the tension that stayed even when the day ended. Let your presence move gently through my emotional space, softening what feels tight, loosening what feels stuck, and bringing calm where there has been strain. I ask you to reset my inner environment, the atmosphere within me. Where stress has crowded in, bring spaciousness. Where noise has lingered, bring quiet. Where my inner world has felt cluttered or restless, restore a sense of order that comes not from control, but from peace. There is no urgency here, no pressure to change quickly. This cleansing is not dramatic. It is restorative, like clean water, moving steadily, reaching places that have been overlooked, like rest settling in after long movement. I trust that you know how to cleanse gently, without disrupting what is fragile. Your word reminds me that you lead people beside quiet waters and restore their inner life, and I hold that truth softly, not as a demand, but as reassurance. Restoration does not rush. It flows at the pace of grace. As you wash through my thoughts, I release the residue of stress. As you cleanse my emotions, I release the weight of unresolved moments. As you reset my inner space, I allow calm to take root where tension once lived. I breathe slowly as this work unfolds. I do not resist it. I do not analyze it. I simply remain open. Let this cleansing be thorough but gentle, deep but calm, lasting, not overwhelming. God, thank you for the way you renew from the inside out. Thank you for tending to the unseen places with care. I remain here, allowing this washing to continue, trusting that every quiet moment in your presence restores more than I realize. God, as this gentle cleansing settles within me, I recognize something important in your presence. You do not leave empty spaces unattended. You do not remove weight without offering rest. You do not clear what is heavy only to leave a void behind. Emptiness is not the goal here. Fullness is. So now, with intention and trust, I invite you to fill what has been made open. I welcome your presence into the quiet places that were once crowded with noise. I allow what you give to take the place of what has been released. Fill my inner space with peace, not the fragile kind that depends on circumstances, but the steady peace that anchors the soul. Let it settle gently, like calm after long movement. Let it rest in my thoughts, my emotions, and my body, reminding me that I am safe in this moment. God, I also invite joy to return, not forced happiness, not surface cheer, but the quiet joy that comes from being known and cared for, the joy that doesn't demand energy, but restores it. Let joy rise softly, where heaviness once lingered, bringing lightness without pressure. I ask you to fill my mind with clarity, where confusion once crowded in. Bring focus. Where my thoughts felt scattered, bring gentle order, not control, but clarity that allows me to think without strain and feel without overwhelm. As you fill this space, you also speak truth about who I am. You remind me that I am loved, not for what I produce, not for how well I cope, but simply because I am yours. I am chosen, intentionally, personally, without hesitation. I am held, not loosely, not temporarily, but securely and with care. Let these truths begin to reshape the way I speak to myself. Let them soften the inner dialogue that has been harsh or demanding. Let them gently reframe the way I see my worth, my pace, and my need for rest. I am not empty. I am being filled. I am not lacking. I am being restored. God, I notice how this filling changes the atmosphere inside me. There is less urgency, less striving, less pressure to rush forward. In its place, there is steadiness, there is warmth, there is space to breathe. I receive what you offer without questioning whether I deserve it. I receive peace. I receive joy. I receive clarity. I receive the assurance of being loved, chosen, and held. I remain open, God, allowing this fullness to continue settling in. Let this holy exchange complete its work, not in a rush, not all at once, but gently, thoroughly, and with lasting effect. God, as your peace and fullness continue to settle within me, I turn my attention inward, not with criticism, but with care. I bring before you the way I have learned to speak to myself. the words I repeat quietly, the labels I carry without realizing it, the assumptions I've made about who I am, based on moments of weakness, fatigue, or disappointment. I acknowledge that some of my inner language has been shaped by shame, by experiences that taught me to be hard on myself, by expectations that told me I should always be stronger, calmer, more composed than I felt. I recognize the tone I've used with myself, impatient, demanding, unforgiving, and I place it gently in your presence. God, I ask you to renew my mind, not through pressure, but through truth. I ask you to reframe how I see myself, not by denying what I've felt, but by speaking what you see. Let your truth slowly replace the harsh narratives that have taken root inside me. Where I have called myself weak, remind me that you see me as human and deeply known. Where I have told myself I am behind, remind me that you see growth even when it feels slow. Where I have spoken failure over myself, remind me that you call me learning, becoming, held. Your word speaks gently about the renewal of the mind, about being transformed, not by striving, but by allowing your truth to reshape how we think. And I receive that truth now, not as a concept, but as a lived reality. I allow your perspective to soften mine. God, teach me to speak to myself the way you speak to me, with patience, with honesty, with grace. Let my inner dialogue become a place of care rather than conflict. Let the words inside me align more closely with your voice, steady, restoring, life-giving. I release the habit of rehearsing shame. I release the impulse to define myself by past moments or present emotions. I let go of the belief that harshness produces growth. Instead, I receive the truth that transformation comes through love, through clarity, through being seen clearly and still chosen. As this renewal takes place, I notice a shift. My thoughts feel less hostile. My identity feels less fragile. I no longer need to prove my worth to myself. I no longer need to punish myself for being human. God, continue this work gently. Let truth settle deeply, not loudly. Let it reshape my thinking over time. Let it become the foundation of how I move forward, speak, rest, and relate to myself. I remain here, open to your renewing presence, trusting that as my mind is renewed, my sense of self will follow, grounded, restored, and aligned with the truth of who I am in you. God, as you continue restoring my inner world, I now ask for something gentle but important, the grace to guard what you have renewed. I recognize that cleansing is not the end of the journey. What you restore is meant to be protected. What you fill is meant to be tended with care. So I come before you asking for awareness, not fear, not vigilance driven by anxiety, but quiet discernment. I acknowledge that thoughts move constantly through the mind, and not every thought deserves permission to stay. Not every thought speaks truth. Not every thought belongs. God, help me notice without reacting. Teach me to pause long enough to recognize what aligns with your truth and what does not. Let me understand that a thought can pass through without becoming part of me. I do not need to wrestle with every idea that appears. I do not need to agree with every inner voice that speaks. Your word becomes a boundary here, not as a weapon, but as truth. A steady line that protects peace. A gentle guide that reminds me what is real and what is false. When thoughts rise that stir fear, self-doubt, or heaviness, let your truth quietly stand between those thoughts and my heart. God, give me discernment to recognize when my mind is being pulled back into old patterns, when worry disguises itself as responsibility, when self-criticism pretends to be motivation, when fear presents itself as realism. Help me see clearly, without judgment, and choose what I allow to remain. I receive the understanding that guarding my thoughts does not mean controlling them harshly. It means caring for my inner life intentionally. It means choosing truth when lies try to settle in. It means returning to what you have spoken when my mind drifts toward what unsettles me. Let this awareness feel empowering, not heavy. Let it bring confidence rather than tension. I am not fragile. I am protected. I am not vulnerable to every passing thought. I am anchored in truth. God, remind me that you are present in this guarding. I am not doing this alone. Your peace stands watch over my mind. Your presence surrounds my inner world, and your truth gently keeps what you have restored from being crowded out again. As I continue forward, let this boundary remain calm and firm. Let my thoughts move within a space shaped by truth, clarity, and peace. I remain steady, aware, and at rest, trusting that what you protect does not need to be defended with fear, but held with wisdom and grace. God, as I continue resting in your presence, I ask for discernment, not suspicion, not anxiety, but clear and steady understanding. I recognize that not every thought comes from the same place. Some are shaped by experiences. Some rise from wounds that haven't fully healed. Some are fueled by fear, and some do not come from you at all. So I ask you to help me recognize the difference. When thoughts rise from pain, they often carry the echo of past moments, memories that left a mark, emotions that surface unexpectedly, reactions shaped by what once hurt. I ask for compassion toward myself when these thoughts appear. They are signals of places that need care, not judgment. Let me see them clearly without letting them define me. When thoughts rise from fear, they often speak urgently. They exaggerate outcomes. They pull my attention toward worst-case scenarios and make peace feel fragile. I ask for wisdom to recognize fear-based thinking without submitting to it. Let me see fear for what it is, a response, not a truth. And God, when thoughts rise that feel heavy, accusatory, or relentlessly critical, thoughts that press down rather than lift up, help me recognize that these do not reflect your heart. I acknowledge that the enemy seeks to confuse, discourage, and isolate, but I do not fear that influence. I simply refuse to agree with it. Teach me the difference between conviction and condemnation. Conviction, as you give it, is restorative. It brings clarity without shame. It points toward growth without crushing the spirit. It leaves room for hope and movement forward. Condemnation, on the other hand, is heavy. It speaks in absolutes. It attacks identity rather than behavior. It leaves the soul feeling small, trapped, and defeated. God, help me listen closely to your voice. Your voice is gentle. It corrects without harm. It guides without pressure. It brings light, not darkness. Even when you redirect, you do so with care. Even when you reveal truth, it leads toward freedom, not despair. I ask for the habit of testing my thoughts against truth, not reacting impulsively, not accepting every inner narrative, but quietly asking whether a thought reflects your character, your promises, and your peace. If it does not align with truth, I release it without argument. I do not need to entertain what does not come from you. Let discernment grow naturally within me. Let it feel like clarity, not strain. Let it steady my inner world rather than complicate it. I trust that as I remain close to you, recognizing the source of my thoughts becomes easier and more intuitive. God, thank you for being patient as I learn this. Thank you for guiding me gently, helping me recognize what to release and what to receive. I remain attentive, calm, and grounded, confident that your truth continues to shape my inner life with wisdom and peace. God, in this settled space with you, I now reclaim what has always belonged to me. Peace, not as something I must earn, protect anxiously, or fight to hold on to, but as a gift you freely give. I take it back gently, intentionally, and without resistance. I acknowledge that peace may have been interrupted, misplaced, or crowded out by noise, responsibility, and inattention, but it was never lost beyond reach. It has been waiting, steady, available, and ready to be received again. And now, with quiet confidence, I reclaim it. God, I take back peace in my mind. I release the idea that constant tension is normal or necessary. I no longer agree with the belief that rest must be postponed or justified. I allow peace to settle into my thoughts, slowing what once raced, softening what once strained. I take back peace in my emotions, where feelings have felt overwhelming or unsteady. I invite calm to return as a grounding presence. Peace does not erase emotion, it steadies it. It creates space where feelings can exist without control or chaos. I receive peace as a dwelling place, not a passing moment, not something fragile that disappears at the first sign of difficulty, but something solid enough to live within. Let peace shape the atmosphere of my inner world. Let it be where my thoughts rest, where my emotions settle, where my spirit feels at home. God, this reclaiming does not require force. There is no struggle here, no raised voice, no urgency. Authority does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it simply stands firm and refuses to give ground. And in that steadiness, peace returns naturally. I choose not to negotiate with anxiety. I choose not to surrender calm to pressure. I choose not to abandon peace for the sake of productivity or expectation. With quiet authority, I remain anchored in what you provide. Peace is not weakness. It is strength held calmly. It is trust, expressed without words. It is confidence that does not need to prove itself, and I receive it fully now. God, thank you for restoring what was displaced. Thank you for meeting me here, not with force, but with presence. Let this peace remain, not because circumstances are perfect, but because you are near. I settle into this calm authority, unhurried and secure, trusting that what has been reclaimed does not need to be defended aggressively, but simply lived in, steady, grounded, and at rest. God, as this time with you comes to a gentle close, I pause to give thanks. Not hurried thanks, not rushed words, but sincere gratitude for what you have already done in the unseen places. Thank you for meeting me here. Thank you for the calm that now rests where tension once lived. Thank you for the clarity that has replaced confusion and the peace that has returned without effort. I acknowledge that something has shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, but truly. The inner atmosphere is different now. The heaviness that once lingered no longer has the same hold. The restless energy that crowded my thoughts has been quieted. What once felt overwhelming has been softened by your presence. God, I seal this work with gratitude. I affirm that this moment was not empty. It was purposeful. It was restorative. I recognize that negative energy no longer has authority here. It does not govern my thoughts. It does not define my inner state. It does not determine how I move forward. What you have cleansed and filled remains protected. I thank you for the peace that now feels stable and grounded, not fragile, not fleeting, but settled. I thank you for the renewed awareness, the gentler inner dialogue, and the sense of being held rather than rushed. These are not small gifts. They are signs of your care. God, I affirm with quiet confidence that I am not the same as I was before this prayer. Something has been released. Something has been restored. I move forward, lighter, clearer, and more grounded than when I began. Not because everything has been solved, but because I am no longer carrying it alone. Let this peace remain as I return to the rhythm of my day. Let it influence how I think, how I respond, and how I rest. Let it serve as a reminder that I can always return to this place, not through striving, but through presence. I rest now in what you have done. I do not revisit what was released. I do not question what was restored. I trust the work that has taken place, knowing that you complete what you begin. Thank you, God, for your nearness. Thank you for your gentleness. Thank you for renewing my inner world in ways that are real and lasting. I close this prayer quietly, confidently, and at rest. In Jesus' name, Amen.